I was in middle school. It was actually whenever I found out what HD is. That's also when I found out that I was at risk for it. I had gotten a phone call from my father, and he was telling me that he had been tested, and it came back positive, and that he was sick. I made sure that my final year of college, I was not even going to, consider asking her to marry me, because I knew for sure that she was in. And so before any of that, I was talking to her, and I would say, hey, just a heads up, there's an illness in my family, and it's genetic, and there's no way to cure it.
I still remember him telling me that if he tested positive, he would break up with me. Because, yeah, right? Like, he gets to make that decision for me. Because he didn't want to ask me to take that on, which, I mean, obviously is understandable. It's not an easy thing to take on.
Like a week before graduation, I got my test results. And so she was there with me. She went with me to that appointment. She was there when the doctor said, hey, your repeat count's 45. And so it was, in the moment, of course, it's heartbreaking, but it's also very reassuring to have someone there that's like, you know what, like, I'm not scared of that. And so that's huge. Granted, her exposure to Huntington's at that point was pretty limited, but to have someone who goes through that with you and then stays with you is a big deal.
I didn't fully understand it. Obviously, I don't think anybody does when they first learn about it. But I mean, he did what he could to educate me from what he knew, which was really just stories about his grandpa, who had already passed away at that point. And his dad had some symptoms at that point, but it was really minimal, and it wasn't obvious. He just seemed like a normal guy who occasionally maybe walked a little funny or something, but I mean, it was barely noticeable back then.
I don't know if you'll be able to talk about this or not, but you got to see your dad with Huntington's, right?
Yeah.
And so now that you're having your own experience with Huntington's, do you see any like differences between your dad's situation and your situation, or do you see any similarities?
The thing is, my dad was pretty nice too. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, his mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was a good person. So, oh no, I got nothing but good memories. I think once you start feeling so bad, it's just, I don't know, you just hope, folks around to take care of you. But that, we've always had a really close family.
When she says, this doesn't scare me and I'm in, like, there's a lot that she's in for, and I'm fully aware of it. And so they say with Huntington's that for people with Huntington's, the like the paperwork that talks about symptoms and what you're going to experience, it's a couple pages long. But then the materials for caregivers is books and books and books, right? It's just, on top of all that, just practical difficulties. It's also the anguish of seeing a loved one not themselves.
There's a big part of my personality that I like to be helpful and needed. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten to know myself better, and I don't need that affirmation from other people as much. So it's made me kind of rethink some of these things, and I don't know that I would have taken it on as eagerly as I took it on back then. It's not easy, and no matter how strong you are, it's going to kick your butt sometimes. It's just going to. It's the nature of caregiving itself, but also with a disease like this that just, it picks apart the person that you love, and it is hard.
Once we were kind of in that mindset of, we got to plan the wedding and all this, then we started talking about the future a bit more. Naturally the question comes up of, okay, well, part of family is, reproducing and creating those spawn. And so I was like, how do we do this? And so that was quite the ethical and moral quandary, right? Knowing about Huntington's, with being very aware of your situation, there's also a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And I don't mean to bag on anyone making choices about deciding to have kids or not, but my wife and I decided that if we could do this to guarantee that our kids are healthy in Huntington's regards, then we're going to do it. And so that's kind of the conclusion that we came to. So I understand the privilege, the territory that I'm getting into here.
It took us a while to get to the point where we were stable enough to really consider pursuing IVF with PGD, because it's amazing, but it comes with a huge price tag.
We were just talking about in the future, you might be able to watch this on YouTube if it exists still. Hey, Marky-chan, we decided to do science babies. You know what a science baby is? They got parts from mama and they got parts from dada, and they mixed them up like batter. And then they put them in tubes. And then at one point you were frozen. And then they shipped you across the country and they did tests on you. And you two came back without Huntington's, which is a sickness. So you guys were healthy. And then they mailed you back all the way to Tucson. We found out that mama was going to carry both of you guys.
Yeah.
And sure enough, mama handled it like a champ. And
She whined a lot.
yeah, lots of complaining about 10-foot rubs. But we got to the end. You guys are here now. That's the story of you guys. Science babies. You know, I'm not shaking at all. I don't have any physical symptoms yet. There might be some things going on with my memory at this point. It's kind of hard to tell. I keep seeing neurologists about it, and they just keep saying I'm an exhausted, full-time employed human with twin toddlers at home, but who knows? But I'd have to imagine that eventually that would get very difficult. And we kind of have a sneak peek. My father lives with us, and he has Huntington's, and he's been living with us for about a year now.
You know, I go through like phases of when I was like super confident that I could handle it, and times like now where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And I think everybody who goes through this probably goes through those phases of feeling like they can handle it and feeling like they can't handle it. Mark's just such an amazing person that I couldn't imagine having kids that were his.
The biggest reason Huntington's still exists today is because people were not able to check ahead of time, right? If you had Huntington's in the past, in history, there was no test for it. You go off, you have kids, you get some shakes when you're older, boom, your kids grow up, they have it. Right? There's no testing, there's no way of you are privileged enough to live in a country like ours where you can get tested to know. I'm not blaming anyone. I understand it's very hard and everyone has to make their own personal choices, but I do feel that if we were more comfortable with being our true selves and sharing that would help. I know there's lots of layers there on why people don't do that, but if we could, as a community, peel back those layers and make ourselves more open to the world, I feel like that would be huge. I do try to stay as active as I can to help push back those symptoms, but I do know that eventually, no matter what I do, it's going to happen. And so for me, once again, I try to be as mindful as I can. I try to value every day, because every day is, every healthy day is can't be taken for granted. We don't have enough time to take it for granted.